Greetings from a fairly chilly dog walk. So I'm going to try and do more YouTube stuff, more short videos. Sometimes I'll read out a shorter Substack article or just discuss an issue of the day, but I'm going to try this and see if people like it. So today, headlines dominated by the IDF accepting 70,000 deaths in Gaza. That's the bit they're reporting. What they're not reporting is that the IDF say there are 25,000 Hamas fighters in that total. Clearly every civilian death in a war zone is a tragedy. But there aren't any other wars in the world where the number of people killed becomes the metric by which that war is judged. It's only Israel. So that's the first thing to note. The second thing to note is this isn't really news, because in December 2024, I published a paper for the Henry Jackson Society called Questionable Accounting, where we pointed out a number of things, all of which have come out again today. But this is over a year old, it's not news, and it's the fact that it is just an indication of the irresponsibility of some of the mainstream media in how they've reported on this conflict. So the first thing we did was a qualitative, so not looking at the raw numbers, but just looking for trends, patterns, a qualitative study, finding loads of mistakes. And our argument was that if we'd found loads, there were probably loads more. So the numbers weren't reliable and the media shouldn't have been treating them as gospel. And that paper was validated in the most extraordinary way, because it was validated by Hamas themselves, who just a few months after our paper deleted thousands of names from their fatality lists. Obviously that didn't get widely reported either. But what other stuff did we find in that paper? Well, first of all, we were able to disprove the 70% women and children that got bandied around. It was nowhere near that. Then we were looking at previous trends from other wars in Gaza, other wars involving the Hamas Ministry of Health numbers. And we found, the totals had been normally there or thereabouts, but on both sides. So Hamas were usually there or thereabouts with the number of people who died, and the IDF were there or thereabouts with the number of fatalities they estimated for combatants. So we've got two sides here, both sets of numbers, traditionally pretty accurate, and yet the world's media only decide to print one side's numbers. So that's been pretty criminal. And we also found that in previous conflicts, Hamas always hid their combatants. They either left them off the lists completely, or they would just disguise the number of people that had been killed that had been actually militant fighters. So this is absolutely following the usual pattern that we would have expected to see from previous conflicts. And then finally we looked with our partners 50 Global at the world's media, and what we found was the world's media had overly platformed one side to the almost near exclusion of the IDF. So they used the Hamas figures time and time again, but very, very rarely quoted what the IDF was saying for their numbers. Bizarre. You've got two sides in a conflict, and yet the side the world's media chose to platform was the psychotic, murderous, rapist terror group Hamas over the figures of a democratically elected ally. So all in all, today's news is nothing new. It just kind of emphasises what we at the Henry Jackson Society said back in December 2024. No surprises really, but you're going to see a propaganda storm around this. You're going to see all the people who hate Israel claiming it proves something that it doesn't. And you will probably see the kind of pro-Israel fanatics casting aspersions on it and trying to muddy the waters. But at the bottom line is, civilian deaths are always a tragedy, wars are always awful, and it's always better not to start wars than to start them, and that's what Hamas did. It's also better not to use your own civilian population as human shields. And I would say, as a final point, given the amount of destruction in Gaza, the amount of military targets struck by the IDF, the death figure is actually astonishingly low. Although that sounds counterintuitive, because clearly 70,000 is a large number of people. But actually, if the IDF hadn't been taking good care with civilian lives, then tens or even hundreds of thousands more would be dead. So what this figure really shows us is that the IDF were doing everything they said they did. They were evacuating areas, they were giving people text messages, phone calls, warnings to get out before attacks came. And if they hadn't done that, then my goodness, we really would be looking at a slaughter of biblical proportions. As it is, we're looking at the aftermath of a terrible and awful war, as all wars are awful and terrible. And it's just yet another form of anti-Semitism, I think, that this war is given undue prominence when we look at the numbers of dead and wounded in just a few days in Iran, or when we look at the atrocities going on in Sudan and other countries around the world. Stop treating Israel's wars as if they were different from any other war. So that's what I wanted to say today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you do, please leave a comment or a like just to let me know this is worth my time. And I'll see you all again very soon.